rough, we ain't gonna hide. Rock and get us swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us, with rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In our heart and the struggle, we dare to dream. We keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. Haze on the corner, they talking real loud, spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Rock and get us swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us, how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track.
Another Queen Ahmadiyyah production.
Haze on the corner, they talking real loud, spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Rock and get us swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us, how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In our heart and the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track.
Another Queen Ahmadiyyah production.
Haze on the corner, they talking real loud, spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Rock and get us swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us, how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in
nobody knows why liars lie. Winners are not allowed to allow losers to rewrite history. It's God's side and the other side. Country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good, who became it and look like Mr. Potato Head.
I didn't want to be a movie star.
No, you couldn't be a movie star. Ricky Smiley can't act, cause Ricky Smiley can't act. Why is he in a dress again? He didn't be wanting to Barbie, and you gotta tell him no. Sid ain't got no special, you remember? Eve ain't got no special, you remember? Ricky ain't got no special, you remember? Sir, I have 12 comedy specials. P. Diddy or whoever you is, TVJ, 20 of them. I won't stop burning you down until there ain't nothing left. Rubble on top of rubble, and I'll still be bombing. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no. Look like a wall, Richard. Look like a wall. You didn't say no.
All right, hello everyone, Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Dr._A_Shakur and X at DGoddess27. And as per usual, if you don't like what the Queen is cooking, you already know what to do. All right. All right, now let's see who's in here before we get started. All right, Andrew is here. All right, Edward, Desmond, Anita Harrell. All right, songwriter Sonny, Buckhorse DC. Okay, let's get into it. Most hated bronze flat power God. All right, Miss AP is in the house. Auntie Leah is here. All right, let's get into it. Miss Sheila, DD in Dallas is here. All right, everyone hit that like button. Lady Bridget is here. Everyone hit that like button. Shout out to all of my loyal worlds in the chat and everyone tuned into the queen. And a big shout out to my moderators putting in work. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this. Don't forget, by giving this video a like and a share, that's the one way you can support the stream absolutely for free. Okay, and keep your notifications on because I will be back later on this evening, beloveds. All right, so Diddy, as we know, there's been a myriad of things that have happened over the past few days with Diddy's case. First of all, his attorney, Anthony RICO, quit due to some supposed or alleged power struggles between he and Mark Agnifilo, the lead attorney. Then also, Tony Busby has been barred from practicing law in the Southern District of New York due to his own foolishness, where he didn't apply or didn't petition to practice law there before filing a myriad of cases against Diddy. Okay, this man has filed at least 12 or more cases against Diddy, and now he's not even able to practice. Okay, now in the event that he does go ahead and file pro hoc vici, well, he still may not be able to practice, okay? Because remember, according to the filings I showed you on Friday, he has to attach a copy of the judge's denial letter to any other petition that he files. And let me tell you all something. Before I get into that, let's have a word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. Like stuff, everyone, please like and share. Here we go.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes oil for your hair at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts, and you can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, so back to what I was saying about Anthony Busby. You know, many people have speculated or wondered why he didn't previously petition, you know, to be able to go to trial in the Southern District of New York. Well, I think I know exactly why he didn't do it. Because at the end of the day, it seems that Tony Busby had no intentions of ever going to trial. Okay, Tony Busby had no intentions of ever going to trial with any of these cases. That's what I believe, because had he actually thought that he'd be heading for trial, he would definitely have already petitioned the courts to allow him to practice there. Okay, he would already have done so. The fact that he didn't says to me that he never intended to. He thought that he was just going to send out these demand letters and people are going to start settling behind closed doors. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. And like Gavin said the other day, when I had Gavin on here, it looks like it's given ambulance chaser. Okay, so sad day for Tony Busby because people are going in on him. All right, and some people are even saying that the rest of his clients need to find a different legal counsel because he's looking real shady right about now. All right, he's looking real shady right about now. Okay, so with that all being said, let's get into it because as I was about to tell you guys, Diddy's team, now they're throwing something else against the wall because remember I told you in their desperation to get Diddy off, they're throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. Well, now his attorneys are saying that in fact, the police raids on Diddy's homes were unconstitutional. What do you all have to say about that? They said the raids on Diddy's home, on his homes, were unconstitutional and the evidence should be in fact suppressed, not allowed into court. So we're about to get into that, and I have the legal documents that they filed, 30 pages. We're going to go over it, and much of it, mind you, is redacted. Okay, Panther strikes as queen. That's what I was thinking when Gavin was on the broadcast Saturday. I wondered what he was thinking. Well, you know, I asked Gavin about that. I do believe I asked him about that, about Tony Busby not filing and where that would leave the rest of Diddy's cases, you know, because these cases may have to get tossed as well, unless he can get other attorneys who are able to practice in the Southern District of New York to go ahead and take over, which is likely what he'll do. But and then Gavin did say that he'll likely file another pro hoc vice. Okay, but again, he might get denied. All right, so we'll just have to see as it all transpires. But anyway, let's get into this because Diddy's counsel claims those raids were unconstitutional. All right, he and his legal team are taking aim at the highly publicized raids undertook by Homeland Security last year. Okay, so they have a filing that states that the warrants were used to secure raids on 2 properties and they were overbroad. All right, so let's get into it because, as I said, I have the documents. I'm going to share my screen so we can go over the legal papers. All right, here we go. Let me put my watermark on here. All right, so let's get into it. Hold on, guys. Let me put this phone on Do Not Disturb. Okay. Now, with that all being said, let's get into it because here's what they have to say. Now, this was filed on February the 23rd. Okay, the government has a duty of candor when it seeks warrants. The nature of the proceeding mandates secrecy, so the process is not adversarial. Precisely for that reason, investigators have an obligation to present a fair picture of evidence. Okay, so what they're saying, present a fair picture of evidence, basically saying that when they do present any evidence they've obtained, they can't try to give mis or disinformation about the evidence. They can't try to act as though the evidence is showing them something that it isn't. Okay. So they go on to say, precisely for that reason, investigators have an obligation to present a fair picture of the evidence, including both inculpatory and exculpatory facts. All right, that would be evidence that can help the victim or the defendant. Evidence that can help the defendant work in his favor, or evidence that can work against the defendant, against him. So either way, it's supposed to be presented in a fair picture. Now, while investigators need not present a magistrate with every bit of evidence they have discovered, they must nonetheless include a reasonably even-handed account, and they cannot omit critical exculpatory facts that might undermine a finding of probable cause. Okay, now as the Second Circuit has instructed investigators, now hold on, let's talk about that for a second, where they say they cannot omit critical exculpatory facts that might undermine finding probable cause. So that means basically, for example, if they find some evidence that shows that it looks like the person didn't do whatever they're accused of, looks like it could possibly help them to get off, or shows that, you know, maybe they're being lied on or whatever, they cannot try to omit that because that's critical evidence. They cannot try to hide that because that could undermine the finding, you know, to undermine the finding of probable cause. Because you need to have, when you go before a judge asking the judge to sign a warrant, okay, you have to have probable cause. And you have to give the judge some very good reasons as to why you need that warrant. And so if you have evidence that shows that, hey, the case isn't what you thought, you have to show that evidence too. Okay, otherwise you're being unethical. Okay, so as the Second Circuit has instructed, investigators should include evidence if it is the kind of thing the judge would wish to know in determining whether probable cause exists. Okay, then they reference the case of United States versus Rajaratnam. Okay, so the government in this case utterly failed to do so. This is what Diddy's attorneys are saying they basically omitted some evidence or misrepresented evidence that they in fact had before the judge. Okay, so it sought several warrants to search Mr. Combs' residences, his electronic devices, and his person, and it presented a grossly distorted picture of the facts. It included only inculpatory facts, meaning only evidence that made him look guilty, evidence that made him look bad, like he had done these things, but nothing that was exculpatory. And it excluded critical exculpatory evidence that was indisputably in its possession at the time. So they had exculpatory evidence but failed to present it when they were pleading their case to get the warrants and showing their probable cause for meeting those warrants. Now, the government claimed victims were coerced into sex, but it failed to inform the magistrate. And as you can see, this part is redacted. Okay, so it also failed to inform the magistrate that it possessed text messages between the alleged victims and Mr. Combs. The applications were intentionally misleading, which at a minimum requires a Franks hearing. Okay, and I want you all to pay attention because, you know, the police do this, and the feds do. They have been known to do this before. Okay, please pay attention. And they said at the very least it was worthy of a Franks hearing. What is a Franks hearing? Well, I'm so glad you asked. You see, a Franks hearing is a court proceeding where a defendant can challenge the validity of a search warrant simply by arguing that the police officer or the fed or the agent who obtained the warrant, okay, is they provided some sort of false or misleading information within the affidavit, okay, where they went before the judge asking for the warrant, essentially allowing the court to determine if the officer or the agent lied to get the warrant. Now, I want you all to think about this. This is very significant because what they're alleging is exactly what happened in the case of Breonna Taylor. You see, remember, they fraudulently obtained that no-knock search warrant. Okay, that's what they did. They lied to the judge and they lied on the inspector general, saying that he told them things that he claimed that he never told them. So anyway, goes on. The next thing goes on to say, and by the way, speaking of the Franks warrant, okay, it got its name from a landmark case, the landmark case of Franks versus Delaware, which established this legal mechanism to challenge search warrants based on false information. See, that is to protect citizens. Because, you know, the police or shady federal agents can just make up lies and just go before the judge and get a warrant to search your residence and not even have, you know, any real probable cause. Okay, so that's why that was enacted. But let's continue. So they go on to say the warrants themselves were also grossly overbroad. On a theory that Mr. Combs' entire life was a criminal enterprise, the government sought virtually limitless authority to seize any evidence related to that enterprise. All his digital devices and the information they contained, all information in his iCloud accounts, plus troves of records and items in his house, almost none of which was even contraband. Now, Judge Nathan found similar warrants unconstitutional. Here, the government obtained authority to rummage at will among Mr. Combs' private effects. And then they referenced the case of Arizona versus Gantz. Now, perhaps most troubling, the government received essentially limitless authority to search Mr. Combs' digital devices, which contained a vast trove of personal information. They referenced the case of United States versus Ghanaians. The Supreme Court and Second Circuit have repeatedly warned that it is especially important that digital device searches must be limited and particularized. Well, in this case, they're saying that it wasn't limited or particularized because, in fact, they were given free reign to go through all of Diddy's things, okay, all of his devices, including his iCloud. Now, the warrants here have not. The warrants were thus unconstitutional general warrants, and the evidence obtained through those warrants must be suppressed. Are y'all hearing this? What do y'all have to say about it? Well, let's keep going. Now, factual background. During its investigation, the government executed numerous search warrants. On January the 4th of 2024, it received a warrant to obtain all information in Diddy's iCloud accounts. On March the 22nd of 2024, it received 2 warrants to search Diddy's residences in Los Angeles, Mapleton Drive, and Miami, Star Island Drive. Both applications were based on substantially identical affidavits sworn by HSI Special Agent Sean Quinn. 3 days later, on March the 25th, the government obtained an additional warrant to search Combs' person and to seize and search 2 of his cell phones. The warrant sought to obtain evidence related to possible crimes of racketeering, trafficking, and obstruction of justice. The list of items to be seized at the residence were incredibly broad, spanning pages, and it included, among other categories, all digital devices found within the residences. The list of information to be obtained from the devices was similarly broad. Okay, but as detailed below, the warrant applications presented a grossly distorted picture of reality. Now, the government had in its possession, for example, a variety of evidence, including, and then this part is redacted, suggesting victim 1's participation in the alleged freak-offs, or FOs, was voluntary and consensual, not coerced as the government suggested in its applications. Okay. And now you can see in the footnote on page 2, it says the same information with minor variations in paragraph numbering is presented in the Miami warrant and the March 25th warrants. Okay, refers to exhibits to the accompanying Garagos declaration. Now, the government's claims was, and this part is redacted, was based primarily on statements from producer 1, an utterly unreliable witness whose claims were contradicted by other evidence that the government failed to mention. Now, they say statements from producer 1. Who is producer 1? Is that little Rodney Jones? I have questions because, as you can see, they have a lot redacted here. Okay, so anyway, and the government's obstruction allegations were based largely on text and statements taken out of context. A critical part of the context being that blank. Okay, the affiant also failed to mention that nearly every witness he interviewed had blank, giving them a financial motive to fabricate or embellish. So I'm just going to go out on a limb because this is redacted. I'm just going to go out on a limb and suggest what it says. The affiant also failed to mention that nearly every witness he interviewed had blank, giving them a financial motive to fabricate or embellish. Every witness had involvement, perhaps. Every witness had involvement, because if they had involvement, that would definitely give them a reason to lie, or giving them financial motive. Okay, so every witness may have had a lawsuit against Diddy, may have been coming against Diddy for a settlement. So that would definitely be a reason why they would have a financial motive to fabricate or embellish. Now, the probable cause statements were intentionally misleading, but it worked. The government got its warrants, leaked damaging information, like the video of him beating up Cassie, and then executed its military-style raids at Combs' residences. Through this duplicity, the government obtained evidence, including multiple electronic devices with an enormous amount of information about his entire life, and an enormous and unfair tactical advantage. And it continued to press its advantage, obtaining an indictment and multiple additional warrants, which were also incredibly broad. Now, the government's warrant applications contained intentionally or recklessly deceptive statements and omissions. Under the Fourth Amendment, a warrant may only issue upon a showing of probable cause. But as then Judge Barrett wrote, the warrant clause is not merely a probable cause guarantee. Rather, it is a guarantee that a warrant will not issue unless a neutral and disinterested magistrate independently decides that probable cause exists. A magistrate can only perform that function if the government provides an accurate and complete statement of the evidence demonstrating probable cause. Okay, under Franks versus Delaware, if a statement of probable cause contains material false or misleading statements or omissions, then the warrant is invalid. See, they're trying to invalidate these warrants for these raids, which would mean all of that evidence is now fruits of the poisonous tree, meaning that it cannot be used in court. Okay, and any evidence obtained pursuant to the warrant must be suppressed. Now, to suppress obtained, Hold on. Okay, to suppress evidence obtained pursuant to a warrant, a defendant must show, number one, that the warrant application contained intentionally or recklessly misleading statements or omissions, and two, that the falsehoods or omissions were material and necessary to the warrant's issuance. Okay, then they reference the case of United States versus Canfield. Now, to obtain a Franks hearing, a defendant need only make a substantial preliminary showing as to each prong. Okay, recklessness or intent may be inferred where the omitted information was clearly critical to the probable cause determination. So they can basically say, okay, if you left out this sort of information, you omitted this evidence when you were trying to prove your probable cause, then you were being reckless and you intended to do this, okay, as if they did it on purpose, intentionally. So with that all been said, as noted, a warrant application can be false either through affirmative false statements or misleading omissions. An application must contain a reasonably complete statement of the evidence, including exculpatory evidence that would be critical to the evaluation of probable cause. Though an officer need not volunteer every fact that arguably cuts across or against the existence of probable cause, the officer may not omit circumstances that are critical to the evaluation of probable cause. Now, an officer similarly violates the Fourth Amendment if he intentionally or recklessly withholds material information from a probable cause affidavit. While an application need not include every potentially evocative detail that would interest a novelist or gossip, an investigator cannot make unilateral decisions about the materiality of information or merely inform the magistrate or judge of inculpatory evidence. Okay, simply put, an affiant seeking a warrant cannot withhold every exculpatory evidence from the magistrate. Now, if they can prove that the prosecution absolutely did this in their application to obtain the warrant, they're going to have something here. This is going to be a big problem for the prosecution if they can in fact prove this. Okay. Now, the duty to include critical exculpatory evidence includes a duty to reveal information that undermines the credibility of a confidential informant or other witness. So when the government relies on witness statements, which is basically what they're relying on here, because they don't have a whole lot of physical evidence, okay, at least not in my opinion. So when the government relies on witnesses' statements rather than an investigator's own observations, their credibility is plainly relevant, even critical to the probable cause determination. Now, the failure to provide known information that goes directly to the credibility of a witness or informant violates an investigator's duty to disclose. Now, the government made false statements and omitted critical exculpatory evidence in its warrant applications in this case. This omitted evidence was in the government's possession at the time it sought the warrants. The omissions were intentional, or at the very least, reckless. Now, you can see here they have a bunch of things omitted, and it's going to get even worse. Okay, the government's warrant applications hid critical exculpatory evidence regarding victim one's consent and financial motive. And who is victim one? Well, we already know that's Cassie. Okay, so the core allegation in the warrant applications, and indeed the government's entire case, is that Combs forced victim one to participate in FOs. In its March warrant applications to search the residences, it stated blank. This statement was based on the investigator's interview with victim one, which took place 5 years after the events, but the government unaccountably failed to inform the magistrate, both of which severely undermined its account. When it sought the warrants to search Mr. Combs' residences, the government had already obtained one device from victim one, okay, that contained blank. Now, unbelievably, the government did not blank in the warrant applications or even inform the magistrate blank. Faced with a claim of coerced and forced sex, the blank is the sort of thing that any fact finder would wish to know. This is no accidental omission. Okay, so it was purposely done, is what they're alleging. Now, by the time it obtained the warrants to search Mr. Combs' residences, the government had also already obtained blank, blank, and blank. Now, once again, these blank contradict the government's claim that the FOs were coerced. I think that what they may have redacted right here are the fact that Cassie brought them those 9 videos of her and Diddy and other people having relations. Okay, because they then say these blank contradict the government's claims that the FOs were coerced. I think it says these tapes or these videos or this footage, okay? These videos rather. Okay, the warrant applications state that the agent had already reviewed the SC Bad Boy iCloud 1 account and the PD team iCloud 1 account. Okay, as you can see, that entire page was redacted, and this was not much different. Okay, the government alleged that blank, but failed to mention blank more generally, even as their relationship deteriorated and the two managed to break up. Okay, they are important evidence. They show the context of the relationship. And I would think that when they're saying this right here, they're still talking about the video footage and possibly some text messages that were on the devices, because they also mentioned earlier that text messages between Diddy and the witnesses was in possession, in the Fed's possession, okay, and that they didn't really present that before the judge because that would have shown the context of the relationship or how they were dealing with one another. Okay, so they are the kind that any judge would wish to know. All right, so they simply stated that blank, this was intentionally misleading. Blank contradicted victim one's later accounts and gave the investigator obvious reasons to doubt the veracity of the allegations. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance. Now, the investigator was thus legally required to disclose them. Blank contradict the applications in other ways too. The application said blank. Again, blank tells a different story. Okay, as you can see, much of this is also redacted. The warrant applications also claimed blank. Once again, the government hid evidence to the contrary. For example, blank, blank, and blank. Okay, now at the bottom of the footnote, it says blank is a male escort service. As the motion to dismiss count 3 details, the service has been operating in the open for over a decade. The investigators had blank. Now, as the government has since conceded in disclosure letters, blank. Moreover, the government hid evidence that Combs at times discouraged blank from using so many drugs. Okay, now I want you all to pay attention to this because they're clearly talking about Cassie, okay, or victim 1. Moreover, the government hid the evidence that Combs at times discouraged blank from using so many illegal substances. Okay, that's important. And why is that important? Because in Cassie's lawsuit, she alleged that Diddy was making her to take drugs, that he was giving her copious amounts, okay, of these illegal substances. So if there was something to prove opposite or to verify that was not the truth, then they were supposed to show that, which they're alleging that they did. Now, finally, the warrant application contains no mention of victim 1's financial motive to exaggerate and falsify. As the government knew, and then they have a bunch of redactions, okay, thus provided an unusually strong motive to fabricate years after the underlying events. Now, here's the thing. They're saying that the government failed to acknowledge the fact that Cassie herself had a motive to lie for financial gain. Now, Cassie's suit was already settled. Okay, Cassie's suit was already settled with less than 24 hours. So I don't know how that's really going to fly, because at the time that they conducted the raids, Cassie already had her money. So she really shouldn't have had any financial motive for saying anything at that point. But that's just my opinion. So anyway, goes on to say, Blank suggests that years after her relationship, she changed her story in a way that would cause maximum potential damage to Combs and thus give him maximum incentive to agree to a large payment. This is exactly the sort of evidence that goes directly to the credibility of the witness whose story provided the core of the government's applications. As courts around the country have held, evidence that undermines the credibility of a key witness must be released. The magistrate judge must be given the opportunity to assess the totality of the circumstances. Now, here, rather than giving the reviewing magistrate a fair summary, the government hid exculpatory evidence to bolster its own case. Now, the warrant applications were calculated to mislead, omitting clearly critical evidence. Okay, the government also sought to corroborate victim one's allegations and make related allegations with statements from other witnesses and victims. Again, the government hid evidence undermining these witnesses' credibility and presented misleading and selective accounts. We are not dealing here with omission of a few ancillary facts. This is a case of systematic deception. Listen, I'm going to say this. At the end of the day, this is likely true. Okay, this is likely true because, for one, the government, the feds, some of these agents have absolutely done things that are out of pocket. I've already told you all about this a myriad of times. Once we find out that they were accused by one of the media outlets of having leaked the footage of Cassie. Okay, and remember in the very beginning when that video got leaked of Diddy beating Cassie, I said the feds would not have been stupid enough to do that. They know that would affect the case negatively. That could muddy the waters. Okay, that could be used to try to, claim that Diddy needs a mistrial, that, they muddied the jury pool, that was prejudicial information because it had nothing to do with the current case. Not only that, let's not forget how they've been going back and forth, allegedly talking to the New York Post, telling them what they saw on the footage of the tapes and stuff, saying that they couldn't tell whether or not it was consensual. And this is even after a judge ordered them not to be running their mouths and saying anything to the media because they know it's going to become public. So they've done a bunch of missteps. And I even asked you guys, do you all think they're doing some of this stuff on purpose? Because the feds cannot be this stupid. And I want you all to think about this. Tony Busby, with those cases that he's filed against Diddy hanging in the balance, because now we don't know where they're going to go, if they're going to end up being dismissed, or if he's going to be able to be granted pro hac vice, or if he's going to get other attorneys to follow up with these cases or whatever. This is all very problematic because, listen, if the jury, finds out about all of these people that have been all over the internet making up lies, telling all these stories, as I keep telling you guys, and then they find out, of course, they'll know about the case from Little Miss Jane Doe that Tony Busby filed, being dismissed against Diddy and Jay-Z due to insignificant evidence and inconsistencies in the stories, possible lies. At the end of the day, they're going to be looking at all of this, and it's going to make it a whole lot harder for them to believe some of these other accusers who are going to come up there and testify. Okay, now Tapaka Shakur says the judge loads Diddy and his team, and they just keep on pushing and pushing. To me, this is the weakest argument. His legal team literally is trying to legitimize Greg. This is giving Darren. Okay, I don't know who Darren is. Pio Bunyan said, you can hate me now. Okay. You can hate me now, but I won't stop now. Okay, Panther Strike says, at Tapaka Shakur, I believe the prosecution is reaching and the defense is pointing out the illegal nature of the warrants. P. Diddy is a freak, okay? He didn't force anyone to attend. Well, I'm going to have to agree with Panther Strike on that because here's the thing. The defense is doing their job, okay? The defense does have an argument and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're doing what they're paid to do. And that is fighting with all of their due diligence and all of their might for their client, who is Diddy, with his low down nefarious self. Now, at the end of the day, though Diddy is nefarious, in my opinion, and likely guilty of many of the things of which he's been accused, that does not negate the fact that there is a rule of law and things have to be done and filed in a specific way. We can't just have them going out here lying and misrepresenting evidence before a judge to obtain warrants. Okay, that's what we can't just have them doing because, okay, we may say we want Diddy to go to prison and feel like he's guilty, but what if it comes a time when someone's actually innocent, they didn't do these things? Okay, so we don't want innocent people being sent to prison, or we don't want innocent, or we shouldn't want, and we don't want innocent people having their homes raided and their things violated and gone through when there is no probable cause to do so. So the law has to be upheld whether we like a person or not. And let's just look at it like this. Use logic, not your feelings or emotions, okay? Bring the facts to the table because that's what this is all about. All right, so Miss Sheila says, if Diddy gets off some kind of way through a technicality, I will know that these are elites, that these elites are playing in our faces. Honey, they've been playing in our faces. You should know that already, beloved. They've been playing in our faces. I mean, look at it. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein, all the stuff that he was accused of and found guilty of, and we still don't know who the hell is on his client list. They always play in our faces. That's nothing new. That is nothing new. But at the end of the day, in this case, it's the feds that are playing. Because like I keep telling y'all, all the stuff that the feds have done, this is giving Diddy's defense the opportunity to come with all these filings, trying to get cases dismissed and trying to say that his rights were violated. I mean, let's not forget how they went into his locker at the jail and took pictures of his notes and all of that, which were clearly not contraband. So what was their point? Okay. What was their point for doing that? Because that's not a normal practice. That's not normal procedure. Okay, as I read to you all in the paperwork. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, the government relied on information from S Worker 1. Okay, then there's some things redacted, but S Worker 1 has also given the government exculpatory information, none of which was included in the warrant applications. Let's get into that. Now I want you all to pay attention, because didn't I tell y'all this? Didn't I tell you all this? See, here's the thing. They're talking about S Worker 1. What did I tell you all weeks ago? I said some of those S workers who were supposedly involved in the alleged freak-offs with Cassie and Diddy, are they going to get up there and testify that Cassie was a willing participant, as the defense team is alleging? Are they going to say that she was all down for it, that she wanted to get it in? Because as I told you guys, they say Diddy was sitting there pleasuring himself while he would watch Cassie and these S workers. So if he's pleasuring himself, then it had to be something he was seeing that he was getting his kicks at watching. Was Cassie fighting, biting, kicking, scratching, yelling, screaming, trying to get away? Was she doing any of those things that one would do if someone was forcing themselves on them? They're going to ask the S workers that if they haven't already. That's what I told you guys. And so they have talked to some of these S workers, and they have clearly given statements that are exculpatory for Diddy, which likely means they said that, you know, she was down with it. Because here's the thing, if she wasn't down with it and they were having relations with her while Diddy sat there and watched, aren't they just as guilty, if not more so, than Diddy? Because they were the ones actually committing the assault on her, if that's the case. So are they going to get up there and testify that they did something like that? Are they going to accuse, or are they going to admit to rape or assault on themselves? See, this is what I told you all. This is called critical thinking. Now, with that all being said, goes on to say these statements from a key participant in the FOs undermine the allegations. Okay, blank, and they corroborate blank. Now, please pay attention. This is from a key participant in the freak-offs. Okay, so you all should already know this. Like I said, I told you all this weeks ago, if not months ago. And at the footnote at the bottom of page 11, it says the government has refused to provide the defense with the names of the anonymized individuals named in the warrants. Okay, S Worker 1 appears to be the same person disclosed in the letter. So they don't have these people's names. Okay, the defense team is keeping them anonymous. Okay, with that all being said, and they corroborate blank, it is unclear when the government received this information. The government has only stated blank and blank, something any investigator would have asked. It is also unclear what other exculpatory statements S Worker 1 made about blank. Okay, that probably says Cassie and the freak-offs, if I had to guess. What other exculpatory statements they made about Diddy, Cassie, and the freak-offs? That's what I would guess. Now, this is precisely why a Franks hearing is required, okay, to learn more about what the government knew and when. Moreover, even if the government was not yet aware of blank and blank, it could have been aware had it asked. Okay, failure to undertake further investigation in the face of questions about the accuracy of information is reckless. So they want a Franklin hearing or a Franks hearing. So given the government's loose relationship with the truth throughout its warrant applications, now I want you all to pay attention to the shade that they just threw. Given the government's loose relationship with the truth, basically calling them liars, okay, throughout its warrant applications, the most obvious inference is that the government was already aware of S-Worker One's exculpatory statements that simply failed to include them in their applications. It did exactly what the Second Circuit forbids, merely informing the magistrate or judge of inculpatory evidence. Okay, you know, this is all looking bad if this is all true. Now, they have this Franks hearing and they get up in there and they prove, if they have this Franks hearing and they get up in there and they can prove that in fact the feds had information that was contradictory to anything that Cassie said, or that the S worker actually said things that were contradictory to Cassie, because she's the star witness. Remember, most of this case is hedged on what she has to say, on her own testimony and the statements that she's given to the feds thus far. So if they can prove this is going to be a whole hot mess, because that will absolutely mean that all that evidence that they got from the raids is inadmissible. And I told you all months ago, I'm not too sure if the feds aren't purposely trying to mess up this case. Okay? Because I believe that the only thing the feds really want, this is my opinion, and I've said it a myriad of times, I think they just really want the footage that they don't have, that they know that Diddy does, that has some of these big time wealthy people on there. Okay, so they do a cleanup job. Now, with that all been said, it looks like for the rest of it, looks like they're just going through the motions, in my opinion. Now, but the applications were particularly misleading in their recounting of supposed obstruction of justice. They stated Combs had obstructed justice by blank, blank, and blank, but the government cherry-picked a couple of statements out of context to imply blank. But the complete thread demonstrates the opposite. All I can say is the prosecutors better hope that Diddy's team doesn't know what they're talking about, because if they do know what they're talking about, this is all factual and actual. Yeah, they're in trouble. I promise you that. Now, this was not a harassing or threatening exchange. It was rather blank, blank, and does not remotely make out probable cause for an act of obstruction. But the government plucked a few quotes out of context and thus presented the magistrate with a completely distorted picture of what happened. This distortion could not have been accidental. It was deliberate. It was a deliberate choice. And, you know, by the way, for FYI, the government doesn't even have a good case against Diddy, even with the evidence that they have. They do not have a good case, okay, as far as I'm concerned. It's thin, okay? It's absolutely thin. First of all, the witnesses or the accusers, these people don't really have any real proof, okay? All they have is their word against Diddy's word, and what do you think Diddy's going to say? And then second of all, the footage that Cassie gave them, they're saying that shows that she was a willing participant. Now we have just what I told you all months ago, that an S worker is sitting up here saying basically that she was agreeing to this stuff. Okay, that it wasn't that consensual, because that has to be what they said, because it goes against what the prosecution has been alleging all this time. So this is just going to be a whole hot mess. Lord, please don't let Diddy walk out of that jail. But let me continue. But the most serious and specific allegation from producer one was his claim that blank. The application state blank, 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 and blank, and these accusations were never credible. They were uncorroborated, blank, and the government had boatloads of contradictory evidence, including blank and blank. Now, the government eventually dropped these allegations in later warrants, but their lack of credibility was manifest from the outset. And the government once again failed to disclose the producer one's financial incentive to fabricate and embellish. So here's the thing. If they're talking about Rodney Jones, and I think they are, they're saying that he too had a financial incentive, and he did. He wanted his money that Diddy owed him. Now, I'm not saying that he said anything that wasn't true, but the fact of the matter is he did say that Diddy owed him money, and quite frankly, he's suing Diddy for that money. So there again, they make a good point. Okay, now the government has advised us it will not call producer one as a witness at Combs' trial. That's interesting. Presumably that is because his stories are fantastical and he lacks any credibility. Wow. Do you guys hear this? Do you all hear this? Now this is problematic. This is problematic, and here's why. So they talked about producer one when they were trying to obtain the warrant. Okay? When they gave their application for the warrants, they used the information that they obtained from producer one. That's what they did to get the warrant. But now they themselves have said that they're not even going to call him to testify, presumably because his stories are fantastical and he lacks any credibility. But his lack of credibility was equally apparent in March of 2024, in part based on blank. At a minimum, the warrant application should have disclosed blank, namely his motive to fabricate and to tell the government a story that matched the stories, blank. Wow, this is real interesting, because why would they use his evidence or anything he said to get the warrants, then turn around and say, oh no, we're not going to use any of his testimony. We don't want him to testify at the trial because his stories are fantastical and he has no credibility. So, but he had credibility for you to get those warrants. Do you all see where this is going? Do you all see where this is going? Okay, the defense team is on their ass. I want y'all to pay attention. Now, Panther Strike says, finally, a defense team is asking questions and challenging. Yes, P. Diddy is a freak, but lynching a man judicially is wrong. Get him for assaulting Cassie. Well, they can't get him for that because that's past the statute of limitations, beloved. But at the end of the day, they have to go by the law. You can't just be, because you think somebody's guilty, you can't just be doing all kinds of unethical things, because y'all know right here, it makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever that they use producer one's testimony or use things that he said in his lawsuit filing to get this warrant, but then turn around and say they don't want to use anything he said because, hey, he's got no credibility and the story sounds crazy. That's basically what they're saying. Now, Miss Sheila says, there was a picture with Lauren London and Cassie hugged up with an alleged S-worker. It just looks strange. Then the pics of Diddy in London, it is just strange. Well, absolutely, because I showed all of that. I did a whole story on that. I did a whole story about Diddy's relationship to Lauren London and how I believe that he used her to get close to Nipsey and all of that. And yes, her and Cassie were hugged up, and there was somebody who looked like an S-worker, and that further might be used in court against Cassie because that looked like they had some kind of triangle going on, okay? And let's not forget that Cassie and Lauren London were supposed to be really, really good friends and all of that. So, and as close as Lauren London was with Diddy, there could have been a little freak off going on there, which I think there was. Okay, not that that really should have any bearing on the case, but that could be used to prove consensual, okay? Along with what the S workers are going to say, because one of them's already allegedly said something to the contrary of what the state is alleging. Okay, so anyway, goes on to say, once again, however, the government hid this from the magistrate. The investigator simply produced producer one's claims without qualification as if he were a credible witness, and they knew he wasn't, because that's why they want to use the statements. Okay, please pay attention. Now, victim 2, blank, 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 and blank, and victim 3, the affidavits alleged, based on interviews with victim 3, that Combs blank. The relevance of these allegations is less clear. The claims about victim 3 appear under the header blank, blank, and blank. In any event, the warrant applications once again include none of the information the government must have known that called into question her credibility regarding the allegations. Now, once again, none of this information necessary to assess her credibility was included in the warrant applications. Okay, seems like they're having another problem with another alleged victim's statements. Now they're basically acting as though this other victim, victim 3, is also possibly not credible. Now, victim 4, the warrant applications included allegations that victim 4, blank and blank. They went on to state that blank, blank, the government made no effort to corroborate victim 4's claims. So they didn't try to verify it. There was no verification of the claims, okay? If it had conducted a reasonably competent investigation, it would have obtained evidence contradicting her account, including blank, 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 and blank. Okay, well, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, the defense team, or the prosecution right now is sounding like they did some of the same foolish things that Tony Buzbee did. And that's not verifying. Okay, that's not verified and vetting information. That's what that sounds like they're saying. Now, the applications failed to note that blank, 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 designer 1. The warrant applications also included allegations from designer 1, blank. The government also claimed a representative of Combs had engaged in obstruction when blank. The applications failed to note the context of that, blank, 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 blank. It's some 3 critical witnesses on which the government relied were all blank and blank. Not only did they have the general financial motive to fabricate blank and blank, that information would have, to put it mildly, raised doubts about their credibility. But the government said nothing about blank. Once again, it intentionally hid evidence that would have undermined their credibility. So here's the thing. Apparently what they're, it's clear what they're saying. So they're basically alleging that the prosecution went before this judge with all of the statements from these people and didn't really vet all of it as they should have. Didn't, do any serious investigation into some of the context of what was said, but also knowing that some of these people were absolutely not credible. And so they misrepresented the information. If this is the case, if this is true, then they misrepresented information. Okay? And if that's the case, the defense might have them dead to rights. Now, the misrepresentations and misleading omissions in the warrants are frequent and patterned. Okay? Meaning they've done this multiple times and have a pattern of doing so. The affidavit omitted, for example, all information about all the witnesses and financial motives to fabricate. These omissions were related and exculpatory. So basically, they try to present these people to the judge as if they were all such upstanding citizens and had no motivation to lie or say anything that wasn't factual. When in fact, they did have motivations to do so. That doesn't mean that they did lie, but you have to be honest. They all had a motivation to do so. Okay, well, we don't know who all of them are because they're not named, but we do know that Cassie and then Little Rod, producer 1, I would think that's him. So yeah, they do have financial incentives, but Cassie was already paid. So I wouldn't say Cassie. She was already paid before they conducted the raids. Now, they could say that maybe she was being vindictive or just wanted Diddy to go down, or, well, here's another thing. What they're saying in the case of Cassie, this is what I think they're saying in the case of Cassie. Now, the raids were conducted after Cassie already received her settlement, but the things that Cassie said in her lawsuit about Diddy, all of those things are the same things that they're going to want her to testify to. So that's likely what they're talking about. They would have to be because, she'd already gotten her payday. Okay, so they're basically more likely than not suggesting that she's going to have to stick to that story because that's the story she told in her lawsuit filing when she was trying to get her cash. Okay, so with that all been said, the misrepresentations and misleading omissions in the warrants are frequent and patterned. Now, these omissions were related and exculpatory, indicating recklessness. This is a case where the cumulative effect of all of the omissions was to eliminate nearly every indicator detracting from the witness's reliability. This is a case where the affiant failed to provide all potentially adverse information that might be or might have undermined a probable cause finding. So the law provides, see, the feds know better than this. So the law requires that the government to include all critical exculpatory information in a warrant application. Here, the government included none. As trafficking, like child pornography with a P, is so repulsive a crime that those entrusted to root it out may, in their zeal, be attempted to bend or even break the rules. Well, I can tell you right now, they definitely do this. Okay, they definitely do this. Not all of them, but some officers and agents will absolutely do this. They'll want to get a conviction so bad, or they'll want to get the person arrested so bad that they'll just start twisting the rules. Okay, that's what they'll do. They'll twist the rules to paint their own and suit their own narrative. Dr. Van says, you already know Queen Cassie's a woman. She wanted to get him for messing her up. Yeah, that could absolutely be the case, beloved. And even if it isn't, I'm pretty sure the defense is going to bring that out. Okay. And here's the thing. I want you all to pay attention. Here's something else that the defense, I just thought about this. Here's something else that the defense is going to bring up, likely. Do you all remember when I showed you the awards show? I think it was from 2022 when Diddy shouted out Cassie, when he was shouting out all the people that he wanted to thank. Do you all remember I showed you that video and Diddy said, I want to thank Cassie for being with me through those dark times? Do you all remember that? One's in the chat if you remember that. Once in the chat, if you remember that. Do you all remember when Diddy was at the BET Awards and then he shouted out Cassie in 2022, I think it was, and he said, I want to thank you, Cassie, for being with me through the dark times. You know why that's significant? You know why that's significant? I'm going to tell you why. Because his attorneys can say that was his way of apologizing or showing that he didn't have any angst or disdain towards Cassie. He said that he was in dark times. When else did Diddy say he was in dark times? I'm so glad you asked. He said it in his apology, whether he meant it or not. The fact is, he said it. He said, I was in a dark place. Remember that? And then he said at the BET Awards that Cassie helped him and she was there for him through dark times. Does that sound like someone who wanted to be away from him or someone who was there to have his back? And also, let's not forget that Cassie allegedly came to Diddy to check on him after Kim Porter's death. Does that sound like a woman who was beaten, brutalized, and all these things that she didn't want anything else to do with this man? Now, I'm not saying she did want anything to do with him. I'm just telling you what the defense is likely going to say, because they're going to eat her up alive on that stand. But the thing that Cassie has working in her favor and Diddy has working against his is, like I told you days ago, Cassie is pregnant. I heard TMZ talk about that too after I mentioned it. But y'all heard it here first. Please pay attention. Cassie walking up in there pregnant, married with children and all of that. How do y'all think the jury's going to look at that? That's going to have them, I'm pretty sure that's going to give them some empathy and sympathy for Cassie. So what's going to prevail? The optics or the testimony? Because if the S workers get up there and say Cassie was a willing participant, and that's going to make it look like she's not as sweet and innocent as she looks. Okay, please pay attention. So Shakur says, why did he settle with Cassie? What does she know about him and his business partners that was worth those 7 figures in 24 hours? I haven't seen any discussions on this. Well, I'm so glad you asked, because I gave a very thorough discussion on this, beloved. Diddy didn't settle with Cassie. His companies did. His insurance company settled with her. Okay, that's how that worked, because she was not only suing Diddy, she was suing his companies, the entities that he owns, and the insurance companies suggested that they decided to settle. Diddy didn't want to settle. That's why Cassie's attorney said they had been negotiating with him for 6 months. That's why Diddy's attorneys initially said, I believe it was Sean Hawley, who said something about they had been trying to extort them for 6 months. Well, I don't think they were trying to extort them. They were basically trying to come to a settlement agreement. And since they couldn't come to one, that's when she filed the lawsuit. And then the insurance companies wanted to settle because they just wanted the mess over and done with. Okay, so it wasn't Diddy's idea. It wasn't Diddy's idea. And I don't think Diddy was worried about Cassie or anybody else having anything on him, because at the end of the day, Diddy's got stuff on all of them by way of footage, I'm pretty sure. Okay, I believe that is part of the problem. Okay, so now with that all being said, goes on to say, where was I at? Okay, in cases like this, it is essential that courts enforce the requirements of the Fourth Amendment, both to protect the individual defendant's rights and also to deter this sort of government misconduct. So once again, they're accusing the government of misconduct. Y'all, I'm sorry, but the government's doing a bad job. They're doing a terrible job, okay? Let's not forget how they were admonished in court by one of the judges previously, and let's not forget all the foolish things that they've done thus far, okay? All of this stuff keeps piling up. Now, I'm sorry, but I think they're doing this stuff on purpose. They're not that dumb, okay? They're not that dumb. Now, there is no question, based on the above evidence, that the warrant applications contain falsehoods and misleading omissions. Saying there's no question, so saying without a doubt that they, hid evidence, omitted certain facts, and had falsehoods and all of that, and were trying to purposely mislead the judge. Now, the remaining question, the second prong of Franks, is whether those falsehoods were material. Were they important? Were they relevant? Okay, that's what they're saying. Now, the remaining question, the second prong of Franks, is whether those falsehoods were material. Well, they sound like they absolutely were. Okay, now this analysis examines what a hypothetical truthful warrant application would have stated and whether that information would have supported probable cause. Now, in case of misstatements, a reviewing court must set aside the misstatements and determine whether the untainted portions are sufficient for probable cause. Now, Roger Ratnam, okay, this is another case they're bringing up, cleaned up. Now, in the case of misleading omissions, a court must insert the omitted truths and determine whether they undermine probable cause. Okay, so if they get a Franks hearing, which is what they're requesting, if they get a Franks hearing, they're basically going to want the prosecution to come in and show all of the exculpatory evidence that they should have shown in the first place when they were trying to obtain the warrant applications. Okay, for the applications for those warrants. Now, here, truthful applications would have stated that victim one's blank, blank, and blank, but also that the relationship was long, complicated, and often loving. They would have stated that blank, blank, and blank. Such a truthful presentation would not have provided probable cause for an S trafficking charge or any other federal offense. Still less would it have provided a basis to search anything and everything in Combs's two residences a decade later. Truthful applications would have stated that Combs blank and blank. They would have stated producer one blank, blank, and blank. They would have stated that blank and blank. Such a truthful presentation would not have provided probable cause for S trafficking or racketeering. So they're saying that the government lied. They hid omission. They gave, told false information, basically hid evidence, and made it look like it was S trafficking and racketeering when in fact it wasn't. And had they shown the truth of all the evidence that they had, there would have been no reason ever for the judge to give them a probable cause, okay, for the search warrants, because there would have been no indication of S trafficking and racketeering. That's what they're saying. Okay, that's not me saying that. I'm just breaking this down, explaining to you what the defense is alleging. Now, truthful applications would have stated that after blank, blank, and blank, they would have noted, however, that nearly all these witnesses had also blank. Okay, they would have noted that some of Combs's representatives blank, blank, and blank. Such a truthful presentation, and they keep using the word truthful because they're calling the prosecution liars. They're saying that they lied. Okay, and even if you lie by omission, that is still a lie nonetheless. So such a truthful presentation would not have provided probable cause for obstruction of justice. The government here unfortunately demonstrated a damn the torpedoes full speed ahead mentality. Okay, it is zeal to prosecute a famous target. It rushed ahead and violated the law. It submitted an egregiously false and misleading summary of the evidence, thus denying the neutral and disinterested magistrate the opportunity to independently determine whether probable cause existed based on a fair and truthful summary of the evidence. All right, then they referenced the case of Rainsberger. Now, it presented only inculpatory evidence and it hid all exculpatory evidence. These falsehoods, taken in aggregate, were material to the probable cause determination. Truthful and complete applications would not have provided probable cause to search both of Combs's residences and all of his devices. Now, the warrants themselves were also unconstitutionally broad, okay? Meaning they weren't specific, okay? When they're saying they're unconstitutionally broad, meaning they just covered too much and they just gave too much freedom, okay? They were not specific. Now, the charges here reflect an extraordinary legal theory that Mr. Combs is himself an enterprise and that his business, his household, his personal relationships, and his sex life were all part of a criminal conspiracy. Remember, you guys, when I told you all it made no sense, and I even asked the attorney, legal expert Gavin Richard, when he was on the show weeks ago, I said, how the hell is Diddy involved in a RICO case all by himself? How is he in a RICO case with just himself? Who are the criminal enterprise participants? Why aren't any of them indicted? Okay, and so this is basically what they're saying. Now, that broad theory is alleged in the indictment and reflected in the warrants. The government essentially took the position that everything about his life is possible evidence of a crime. In a series of warrants, it thus sought authority to search and seize anything in his iCloud account, B, his residences, C, his cellular phones, and D, his hotel room. The only limitation was that evidence had to be related to the subject offenses. But because the theory was that his entire life was a racketeering enterprise, there was no limitation at all. So it was basically a anything goes, a free-for-all. Go in there and grab and look at and go through whatever you want. You can get all of his devices. You can go through anything and everything. Okay, no holds barred. Because his whole life is wrapped up in RICO, is basically what they're alleging. The prosecution was telling the judge. Now, this case implicates the central concern underlying the Fourth Amendment. Okay, and remember, the Fourth Amendment is the protection from an illegal search and seizure. Now, the concern about giving police officers unbridled discretion to rummage at will among a person's private effects. That is exactly what the warrants unlawfully allowed. The Fourth Amendment's warrant clause requires that any valid warrant must state with particularity the place to be searched and the things to be seized. See, they have to be specific, and they were not. Okay, now the purpose of this particularity requirement was to prevent the government from using broad warrants, which they allegedly did according to Diddy's defense, to rummage through a person's whole life. The chief evil that prompted the framing and adoption of the Fourth Amendment was the indiscriminate searches and seizures conducted by the British under the authority of general warrants. So a warrant must at a minimum satisfy three criteria. It must specify the offense. It must describe the place to be searched, and it must specify the relationship between the items sought and the designated crimes. They reference United States versus Albrecht. Now, in addition to those three general factors, there are also circumstance-specific considerations that bear on legality. United States versus Zemlansky. Okay, for example, a warrant that fails to indicate a reasonably specific date range can be constitutionally overbroad. And that's exactly what they're claiming, that it's overbroad. Okay, the reach is just too far. Moreover, the search and seizure of personal electronic devices raises additional concerns. The seizure of such devices can give the government possession of a vast trove of personal information that the person to whom the drive belongs, much of which may be entirely irrelevant to the crime investigation or the criminal investigation that led to the seizure. Now, a cell phone search, for example, would typically expose the government far more than the most exhaustive search of a house. Okay? So they're saying that the cell phone would give the government more information than going through the house, because a phone not only contains in digital form many sensitive records previously found in the home, it also contains a broad array of private information never found in a home in any form. They reference the case of Raleigh versus California. Now, with that all being said, everyone please hit that like button. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance, beloveds. Okay. All right, Byron says he still has the footage. That's why they won't let him out. Exactly, beloved. That's what I said as well weeks ago. I absolutely believe it. Jeff says Queen done started live early again. Yep, I sure did, beloved, because the Queen has something to do. Okay, Joyce says, I thought the warrants were used to protect the trafficking victims. The warrants were used to go in there and gather any evidence that they wanted to get from Diddy. But at the end of the day, they would not have even been able to charge Diddy with trafficking victims, beloved, if they had presented the evidence to the magistrate in its authentic, or in its, what's the word I'm looking for? If they had presented it in the correct way, if they had shown not only the inculpatory, but also the exculpatory evidence, if they had shown both to the judge, they likely may not have been able to have the charge of trafficking. So then there would not have been any trafficking victims to protect. Okay. And remember, the only person they're alleged was trafficked is Cassie, victim one. Okay. So with that all being said, which I want to see them prove that, because they're going to be fighting tooth and nail to show that Cassie was in a decades-long relationship with Diddy, and at any moment she could have left or fled or whatever. What about the time her mom called the police? Okay, and Cassie defended Diddy. So they're going to bring up all of this. All of this is going to come into place. So I can't wait to see how this is all going to turn out. Okay, so anyway, goes on to say, thus, the Second Circuit has held that warrants lacking meaningful parameters on an otherwise limitless search of a person's electronic devices are invalid. Okay, they are invalid. Again, at bottom, the core abuse that the Fourth Amendment sought to prohibit was general exploratory rummaging in a person's belongings. They reference the case of Coolidge versus New Hampshire. Okay, this is true as to the belongings in a person's home and as to the belongings in a person's cell phone. In this case, the government sought and received authority for general exploratory rummaging through Mr. Combs' entire physical and digital life. The government sought warrants in this case and that gave it the unfettered ability to search Mr. Combs' residences, his digital devices, and his iCloud accounts. The government's list of items to be seized from his houses was pages long, and it's stunning in its breadth. Now, the government claimed the right to seize, among other things, evidence of Mr. Combs' location or anything reflecting the location of any co-conspirator or witness, which, according to the government, seems to mean anyone who ever worked for Combs or went to a party. Utility bills, mail, correspondence, address books, all calendars or scheduling information, including travel records, all financial records, including bank statements and credit card statements, plus all cash, property deeds or titles or anything related to property ownership, plus any evidence relating to online financial accounts, any SEX toys, sexually suggestive clothing, whatever that means, plus any medical supplies or other materials possibly related to SEX, plus any bodily fluid or other material that might contain DNA evidence, any communication or record of communication with any former sexual partner or employee of the Combs business, plus any communication related to the charged offenses, which was a noted defined incredibly broadly with any possible victim, co-conspirators, or witnesses. Corporate records, including corporate organizational and ownership documents and employment records, any digital device that might contain evidence, including phones, computers, iPads, and cameras. Now, these descriptions were often written with catch-all phrases with regular use of phrases like such as, including without limitation, and including but not limited to. Okay, the list above is thus not even a remotely complete list of what the warrant sought. It merely sets forth some of the high-level categories targeted by the government. The government's warrants to search Mr. Combs' iCloud accounts and his cell phones were similarly broad. As to what information it sought, the government might as well have said everything because they were not specific. They didn't give any particulars. Okay, so this is why it was overbroad in its reach. And they also gave false or misleading information to the magistrate, according to this filing. So as to what information it sought, the government may as just well have said anything. Okay, the iCloud warrant sought the ability to search anything stored in the accounts. The cell phone warrants, both the initial March warrants and the subsequent September warrant, sought all communications, photos, documents, calendars, location data, travel records, financial records, call records, and so on, anything related to the subject offenses. But because the subject offenses were defined as including all of Combs' businesses, his household, and his relationships with his girlfriends over the last 2 decades, it's hard to think of anything that would not have been related to those or to the subject offenses. Now, Judge Nathan held that similarly broad warrants were unconstitutionally broad and suppressed evidence obtained through those warrants. Okay, and this is where they reference the case of United States versus Wade. Okay, they say in that case, Judge Nathan held that, there was similarly broad warrants and they were unconstitutional. And so therefore the evidence was suppressed. Now, Wade involved securities fraud offenses, and the government obtained warrants to search both his residence and his place of business. The warrants broadly sought any and all records or evidence that might be related to the offense, including financial records, bills, messages, travel records, photographs, computers, and cell phones, and so on. Indeed, the broad list of items can be seized very much resembles the list in this case. Now, the district court ruled the warrants were overbroad and therefore illegal. Now, I'm telling y'all right now, Lord have mercy. If they turn these, if the judge determines that the warrants were illegal, this is very problematic. That means none of that evidence that they found, no matter what it was, can be used. Okay, Panther Strike said, did they prepare this case or are they preparing this case? The prosecution is hoping something sticks with this shoddy evidence gathering. Exactly. You see, here's the thing, beloved. We knew that the prosecution wasn't on their job when we saw the first evidence that they brought forward. Remember, they had a few guns and then they had 1,000+ bottles of baby oil and lube. Okay, what's that going to do? Unless, of course, that baby oil had GHB in it, which they've never said anything about that. That's just a conspiracy theory that was online. So, yeah, I just have several questions because to me, the defense is eating them up right now. The defense is eating them up right now from the sounds of it. Okay, so anyway, goes on to say, the district court ruled the warrants were overbroad and therefore illegal. Several key reasons undergirded the ruling. Although the warrants generally identified the crime as securities fraud, the categories of documents sought were so broad and numerous as to be consistent with an investigation into almost any form of financial crime. More importantly, the warrants set forth expansive categories of often generic items subject to seizure, several of a catch-all variety, without crucially any linkage to the suspected criminal activity or indeed any meaningful content-based parameter or other limiting principle. In way as here, the listed property was not illegal contraband. Okay, rather it was property in lawful use that the government only vaguely suggested might be related to broadly specified criminal activity. In way as here, and they keep saying in here because they're saying the same thing that applies to way applies here. Okay, the warrants lacked any meaningful temporal limitation on the items that could be seized. Now, at the bottom, the warrants in way violated the Fourth Amendment because they authorized the seizure of sweeping categories of materials and lacked any practical tool to guide the searching agents in distinguishing meaningfully between material of potential evidentiary value and those obviously devoid of it. As Judge Nathan concluded, the warrants are in function, if not in form, general warrants. Okay, the same is true here. Indeed, the warrants here are even more informed. Whereas the warrants in way authorized unbounded search of the defendant's business affairs, the warrants here authorized unbounded search of Mr. Combs's business and personal affairs. So they're saying this case is even worse. Okay, the warrants here allowed the very sort of general exploratory rummaging in a person's belongings that the Fourth Amendment forbids. Okay, that it forbids. So they're saying they violated Diddy's Fourth Amendment rights, that they've gone against the Constitution, and what they did in obtaining those warrants was in fact illegal. Please pay attention. Now, nor can the government evade the Fourth Amendment's limits simply by stating that Mr. Combs was himself a sort of criminal racketeering enterprise. Exactly. Now, y'all know that sounds crazy. Please make it all make sense. That goes back to what I said previously when I asked Gavin Richard, Esquire, how the hell is it that Diddy is the only person indicted in a RICO case? How is that even possible? But, you know, they did the same thing to R. Kelly. Please pay attention. So with that all being said, nor can the government evade the Fourth Amendment's limits simply by stating that Mr. Combs was himself a sort of criminal racketeering enterprise, and therefore all evidence of his business and personal life was relevant evidence of a crime. If such a rhetorical trick were allowed, the Fourth Amendment would lose all meaning, because why the hell would you need a Fourth Amendment to protect you against illegal search and seizure if they're just going to let them go out there and have these broad, these overreaching warrants that don't specify, don't give any particulars, and just say, you know what, go in there and go through it all. You have free reign. Just go in there and take whatever you want, look through and rummage through whatever you feel, and just take all the devices and gather whatever you need. Without having any exculpatory evidence presented to the judge beforehand, yeah, all sketchy as far as I'm concerned. Now, I don't know if this is true. This is what the attorneys for Diddy are alleging in this filing. But if it is true, this is very problematic, okay? So Lord Chief Justice Holt once famously challenged a prosecutor saying, "Hold, what are you doing now? Are you going to arraign his whole life? Okay, they reference Harrison's trial. Now, they say that is exactly what the government did here. It charged Mr. Combs' whole life as a racketeering enterprise, and it obtained warrants to search his whole life. Now, see, here's the thing. That's another thing that I brought up to you all months ago. If you remember, I said to you guys, so are they trying to say that Diddy always, since he's been rich and famous, he's always had a RICO? He's always had a criminal enterprise? And there were some allegations that came out from like in the early 2000s. And I said, and they, in the lawsuit, they were talking about RICO. And I said, so Diddy was having a whole RICO organization back then, you know, because that's what they were saying. That's clearly what the prosecution was saying. Okay, during his whole life, pretty much in the music business. Now, the iCloud warrant, I'm not saying that he didn't, but I'm just telling you that's what they were saying. Okay, now, and Mark Agnifilo begs to differ, clearly. So with that all being said, the iCloud warrant and the warrants to search his houses, the cell phone warrants and the Park Hyatt warrant were individually and collectively exactly the sort of general warrants that the Fourth Amendment sought to prohibit, because they're too far reaching. And in conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, this court should suppress the evidence and all fruits obtained from the warrants to search Combs' residences, his person, his iCloud account, and his devices. You see, because if this is all true, then that would make all of the evidence that they gathered fruits of the poisonous tree. And in fact, they should be inadmissible in court. Now, these warrants were unconstitutionally broad and in the alternative, and at a minimum, this court should order a Franks hearing to hear additional evidence and determine whether the warrants were properly obtained through deception. So were they being deceitful? Well, you know, that's what it sounds like. And again, remember, the Franks hearing that they're requesting, that's simply a court proceeding where a defendant can challenge the validity of a search warrant by arguing that the police or the agent obtained it, or whoever obtained it, provided false or misleading information in the affidavit that they gave to the judge in their application for the warrant, essentially allowing the court to determine that if the officer lied to get the warrant, and if the officer or agents in this case, if they lied to get the warrant, this is going to be a big problem, like I said, okay? And this is just a way, like I said, to protect citizens, you know, from being caught up in a charge with a crime due to police officers or agents giving false information to obtain their warrants. Like I told you in the case of Breonna Taylor, that's exactly what they did. Okay, that's exactly what they did. So I want you all to pay attention. Okay. Joy says, sounds like they're protecting Clive Davis. They're protecting, I absolutely believe it, beloved. Okay. I absolutely believe it. Okay, Panther Strike says the judge said it. His whole life is not the issue here. Exactly. That's what they said in the case of Way. The trafficking charges include children. No, they don't. There's no children listed in Diddy's indictment. Not even in the superseding indictment, which I was very surprised when the superseding indictment came out and they didn't mention one minor. So no, there's no such thing, beloved, in trafficking. I literally just told you guys that the trafficking charge is Cassie. They're alleging that he trafficked Cassie. There's nothing about any underage people in Diddy's indictment, the first or the superseding. Nothing. Nothing at all. Panther Strike said they lied on Breonna Taylor. Our sister was murdered over a lie. Absolutely. May she rest in peace. Absolutely, beloved. Okay, so y'all heard that, honey. They're out here doing the most as far as I'm concerned. And by they, I'm talking about the prosecution because they sound crazy. Okay, all this stuff, if all this stuff is true, and I want you all to pay attention because I've been asking, you know, what is Diddy's defense team thinking? What are they doing? Why aren't they doing this, this, and this? Well, I see why, because now they're pulling out all the stops. You see, I think what they were doing is they were sitting back, laying low, and letting the prosecution just think they had free reign and that, you know, everything was on the up and up for them. But then they came out like a serpent, okay, and decided to strike the closer it gets to the trial period, to the trial date. Because these are all going to be problematic for the prosecution. Another thing is, what I think is that Diddy's team should file for a motion to possibly file for a motion to postpone the trials until after Cassie has that baby. Now, of course, they're not going to go in the court and ask the judge, hey, wait a minute, our star witness is pregnant, or the star witness against him is pregnant, so we want to postpone the trial. No, of course they wouldn't say that. That would be obtuse. But what I'm saying is the fact, if they know that she's pregnant and see that she's showing, they should know that the optics of that are going to be disastrous when she walks up in the courtroom pregnant, sitting up there, and if she starts crying, which I'm sure she will when she's telling her testimony and talking about the traumatic things that she allegedly experienced due to Diddy. Okay, and she's further going to be crying when Mark Agnifilo, Tina Garagos, okay, Alexandra Shapiro, and the other attorneys just go in on her. Because trust me, during cross-examination, there are going to be no holds barred. Okay, she's going to be up there crying, anxious, upset. I can see it all now. Okay, so they may just want to move to have this trial postponed. Panther Strike says, Queen, this motion to suppress is a dagger in the prosecution's case. Your opinion, if they lose the case, how much taxpayer money will have been wasted? I'll tell you, beloved, millions. Okay, the high millions. That's how much will have been wasted. Okay. So anyway, with that all being said, let's talk about Epstein, honey, because don't you all remember that Trump said he was going to release the Epstein list and all of that? I have several questions. Is he really going to do just that? Is he really going to do just that? I don't know. Maybe he is, but here's the thing. The new Attorney General, here she is. She looks a little young to be the Attorney General, but hey, Trump picked her. So Pam Bondi, that's her name. Miss Pam Bondi is vowing that those the Epstein list is coming out. Please pay attention. She said the other day, hey, the Epstein list is laying right on my desk. Pam Bondi believes billionaires and celebrities are trembling. Okay, so she leaves them trembling as she vows to release explosive documents. Ooh, I know somebody is shaking in their boots right about now, just when they thought it was all over. I hope the evidence does come out. So Donald Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi hinted that she plans to release bombshell files on deceased ex-offender Jeffrey Epstein, suggesting the list of his shrouded clients could soon be daylight, or could soon see daylight. Bondi said the potentially explosive material is on my desk, and there are a lot of documents. So, honey, I know some of these people are scared. Okay, let's talk about it. Now, she says it's sitting on her desk. Okay. And then she says, they say she was briefed on the contents shortly after being confirmed to her post, and said she was looking at them at Trump's direction. She said, I was briefed on that yesterday. I can't talk about that publicly. President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that is going to be followed. This is what Bondi told conservative media figure Benny Johnson. A lot of documents, she said, describing a whole entire trove. Okay, a treasure trove of documents. Now, Bondi made the comments at the Conservative Political Action Conference, known as CPAC, just outside Washington, where she was the speaker. Johnson asked her, where are we with the Jeffrey Epstein list, the documents? Cash has made a lot of public statements about this. And by Cash, she's talking about Kash Patel. So there was a reference to Kash Patel, Trump's new FBI director. Now, Bondi told Johnson, saying, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises. I think promises made, promises kept. And that's why we're all there to carry out his directive about making America safe and prosperous. This is all nefarious at the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance.
Tell us about what it's like defending against those lawsuits, and give us your thoughts on the authority of one radical district judge to try to run the executive branch and issue a nationwide injunction.
2 words: we're winning. But yeah, so you've got one.
I like that answer.
One unelected district judge trying to tell President Trump, who was elected overwhelmingly by the American people, where federal funds can go. We're winning. Even in liberal courts, by the way, Senator, we're winning. And if not, we're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court and keep winning.
All of the pardons that were given out from Joe Biden at the end, there were a lot that went to his family. It is what it is. There's one person he did not pardon. That would be himself. There are a lot of people that think there should be accountability. Should this be something that is looked at to see what he did while he was president?
Don't you find it very interesting that they attempted to prosecute the president for having documents in the most secure place in the world other than the White House, Mar-a-Lago, and he had the security clearance to take them, yet Joe Biden, who had no security clearance to take them at the time, had them in his garage with his drug addict son going in and out of his garage. Yet what did they say about him?
Too old to prosecute.
Frail.
Frail.
Do you all remember that? Did I speak to you all about that like a week or so ago? I meant to tell you all about that if I didn't. They said that Joe Biden had some confidential documents and all this stuff in the garage and whatnot. All crazy.
Man. But listen, Donald Trump and I have not talked about that at all. This is not about targeting. This is what they do to us. This is not about targeting. This is not about weaponization. This is about keeping America safe and going forward and prosecuting violent criminals. If you committed a crime in this country, no one is above the law. I will say that. No one is above the law.
Now, the irony of her saying no one is above the law when Trump is a 34 times convicted felon and he's the president. Please make it all make sense. They need not ever say that again, that no one is above the law. Clearly, some people are absolutely above the law. But let's continue.
You know, the volume, Senator, what concerned me the most, it's the volume of how bad it was. And it still is. We're working on it. It's day by day by day. But we've got a team of great people. And on day one, I issued 14 executive orders. And number one is the weaponization ends, and it ends now. And that's what we did. And that's thanks to Donald J. Trump getting back in office. And he gave us a clear directive: make America safe. And that's what we're going to do. And, you know, these, to start with the law enforcement agencies talking about cash, these men and women didn't go to Quantico. They're not risking their lives to waste their time on all this politicization and raiding Mar-a-Lago. Really? Stopping. All of that is stopping. And we are returning them to their core function, fighting violent crime. And that's what the great majority of men and women in law enforcement, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, FBI, as well as the incredible legal team at the Justice Department. That's what they want to do. So.
Okay, so you all heard that. Chris Wise says bathroom is secure. What about Donald J. Trump Jr., also an addict? Bondi is a whole flying monkey. Well, she could be somebody who protects and defends narcissists. I wouldn't know. But as far as Donald Trump Jr., they've never said that he was a drug addict, beloved. There was a mention that somebody saw him doing Coca-Cola or something, but that was debunked. But we know that Hunter is one. We know that for a fact. We've seen those raggedy teeth that look like he did a whole thing of. Never mind. We've just seen the pictures of him with pipes in his mouth and those teeth looking ragged. Okay, that's what we have seen. But so anyway, let's talk about this, because almost 160,000 civil service employees are millionaires. Are y'all listening to this? Okay, they say when President Biden took office, fewer than 70,000 federal workers were millionaires. By 2022, the number grew to 76,889. The number ballooned to 155,334 by September of 2024. It is likely that there are over 160,000 millionaires working for President Trump. Okay, y'all hear that? Almost 160,000 civil service employees are millionaires. That's all very interesting. Okay, so now with that all been said, listen, I'm about to be out of here, but before I go, did you all see Elon bring out that chainsaw at the CPAC? What was that all about? What was that all about? I have several questions. Hold on, let's talk about it. Then not to mention the protest. Y'all saw the people out there protesting against Elon days ago with his nefarious self. Let's go to the footage. And don't forget that they arrested someone for threatening him online, threatening to give him a dirt nap. Y'all remember? I reported last week.
Tesla showroom on Van Ness in San Francisco today. Many of them say they're frustrated with Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, and his role now in the White House. ABC 7 News reporter Suzanne Fawn has a closer look.
On the streets of San Francisco this Monday, there were clear signs of frustration.
It's a shame on Trump and Musk. People are just very outraged at what they're seeing.
The number of protesters grew in front of this Tesla showroom, and we saw Tesla after Tesla drive by.
I can hear it all the way back in my office.
Demonstrators say they're upset with Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk, who is part of President Trump's DOGE, or Department of Government Efficiency.
We are disgusted with the power grab that Elon Musk has forced on the people of the United States.
It's just unbelievable, and it's not acceptable, and I think that's why everyone is out here protesting.
On Saturday, there were protests all across the Bay Area organized by Tesla Takedown. They were encouraging Tesla owners to sell their cars and investors to dump their stock.
This man gave up his Tesla about a year ago.
I did own a Tesla. I owned a Tesla for 3 years and enjoyed it as a car, but what it now stands for is very different for me. I think it's an important statement. We need to figure out ways to put pressure on these guys so they recognize that not everybody believes on this President Day that Trump represents them.
I wish more people would sell their Teslas or consider alternatives. I mean, Elon Musk is not an elected official, and yet
even singer Sheryl Crow is ditching her Tesla. She posted about it on Instagram. Many people are applauding her for doing that.
Yep, I saw it yesterday.
What do you think? She sent it to me.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I think a very good way to let the big corporations know that we don't agree with them siding up to Donald Trump is by boycotting their products.
A lot of people unhappy with Musk, unhappy with President Trump. They say they're willing to take a stand and show their disapproval any way they can.
They said they're willing to show their disapproval any way they can. Okay, please pay attention. At the end of the day, listen. They're upset because Elon, Gospel Great says, people talking about Elon got our information. You big dummies. Everybody got our information. Data breaches daily. Be for real. Exactly. But here's the thing. What do they think Elon's going to do with it? Go out and get a credit card at your expense? I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to see what all they're going to find about this frivolous spending. That's what I'm interested in. I don't even care about the data. I'm not concerned about that. But that's just me. Some of you may be concerned, but I'm not. Your data is lying everywhere and anywhere in these institutions, and anybody who's a crook may be privy to it, and you may not even know. How many times have they had Facebook data breaches and, Equifax and all these other places? Okay? I think it's all much to do about nothing.
President's Day saw protests throughout the Bay Area and nationwide. 2 protests in San Francisco, both aimed at President Donald Trump, his new administration, and Elon Musk. Here's NBC Bay Area's Sergio Quintana in San Francisco.
Musk and Trump out! At the Tesla store on Van Ness in San Francisco, people packed the sidewalk outside with all kinds of handwritten signs. The organizer of this protest calls this a Not My President's Day demonstration, with Tesla owner Elon Musk.
Hold on, do y'all see these signs? The Trump Musk fascist regime must go. And then one of them said, burn your swastika. This is all nefarious, but let's continue.
And the Department of Government Efficiency that he's in charge of, the main focus of their ire. They say no participants went into the dealership, but one protester did have words with the customer who was inside when the demonstration started.
One guy in there, we saw him doing a deal. He came out, and I said, shame on you. He was a young guy.
Trump and Musk have got to go! Among those at this event are former members of the National Park Service. Charlotte Beltran says she was laid off by the federal government last week.
I think I'm still in shock. Lots of anger and frustration about the whole situation. And sadness, definitely.
A couple blocks away outside San Francisco City Hall, a larger, loosely organized group gathered at Civic Center Plaza. But their signs were about the same, aimed at President Trump and Elon Musk.
Thank you for showing up today. We cannot be complicit.
This group started out small about noon with about a couple hundred people, but continued to grow through the lunch hour and beyond. A couple city park rangers estimated about 1,500 people in this group. A lot of the people that I've talked with today say they turned out to this demonstration because, in part, they just wanted to be around other people. The Sylvester family drove in from Marin County to be here.
I've been feeling just really discouraged and depressed and helpless, and this really is boosting my spirit to come out and feel connected to these people that are fighting for democracy.
Duncan, his wife, a neighborhood friend, and their daughter held signs along with the rest of the group. Larkin Sylvester says she also appreciates being around so many like-minded people. How have the last few weeks been?
Kind of weird and scary and like, whoa, what's going on?
This demonstration.
Okay, so they're having a nationwide call to protest at every state capital. This is what they say. And so, you know, they're not thrilled about Elon or Trump. And I bet you so many of those people voted for Trump. Okay, and now they're upset about what's going on because it feels like Elon's the president and Trump's the vice president. Please pay attention. Okay, this has music, so that's why I muted it. But he's going to call somebody out to bring him a chainsaw. Like, what's really going on here? The Inkwell says, where are the riot police? Exactly. Where are they? Oh, I'm sorry. They only show up when it's people that look like me out there protesting about anything. Please pay attention. Mm-hmm. Evan says, Queen, stop making me laugh this early in the morning talking about what he going to do, open a credit card. I'm serious. That's what people are acting like he's going to go and get things under their name, steal their identities or something, beloved. Elon is just weird, okay? I think he's the Antichrist. I keep telling y'all that. Y'all think it's a game. I'm very serious. Look at it. He's just socially awkward, in my opinion. What is his point? I have several questions. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about Miss Joy Reid. Joy Reid's show is going to be canceled. It has been canceled. I believe tonight at 7 p.m. is her last showing. Okay. I don't always agree with everything that Miss Reid says, but they're getting rid of her. And Trump had some smart things to say because, you know, he doesn't like Miss Joy Reid. Trump rejoices Joy Reid's show cancellation, calls her least talented people in brutal attack on MSNBC. Trump held the decision to discontinue the Reid show, branding her as mentally obnoxious and racist. I mean, the nerve. Didn't he call this woman racist? That's what he said. A mentally obnoxious racist who deserved to be canned much before, he says. I mean, if that in the pot, calling the kettle. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump reacted following cancellations of Joy Reid's show and blasted MSNBC and its host in a brutal social media post, calling her one of the least talented people. So her show, The Reid Out, was canceled as part of an overhaul led by the network's new boss, Rebecca Cutler. In a post on Bluesky, Reid seemed to confirm the news, stating that she will be presenting her show one more time. She says, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has reached out with kindness and encouragement, both personally and in these social media streets. So very proud of the Reid Out team. You are truly family and all of our supporters and friends. See you tomorrow night at 7, one more time. Now, they say notably, Trump has periodically blasted news outlets for their coverage of him, labeling them fake news and portraying the media as the enemy of the people. Okay, and then on Truth Social, Trump hailed the decision to discontinue Reid's show, branding her as a mentally obnoxious racist who deserved to be canned before now. And Reid has regularly disparaged Trump on social media and on television. She shared a TikTok video in July of 2024 urging Democrats to back Joe Biden's re-election campaign in order to prevent Hitler from the White House. She even lambasted Trump as an insurrectionist in January of 2025 due to his alleged involvement in the 2021 Capitol attack on January the 6th, and described his White House comeback as a violent transfer of power. Now, Trump's post comes amid speculations that he was a major factor between her show's cancellation. However, Cutler has rejected such rumors. Now, they say the president also attacked Al Sharpton, saying that he was perhaps the lowest TV rating, or that he has perhaps the lowest TV ratings in the history of television, launching a similar scathing attack on Alex Wagner, who is apparently not coming back to Rachel Maddow's 9 p.m. hosting slot 4 days a week. Maddow had reduced her hosting responsibilities to Mondays, but she resumed hosting 5 days a week during the first 100 days of Trump's presidency. Also thrown out was Alex Wagner, the sub on the seriously failing Rachel Maddow show. Now, Rachel rarely shows up because she knows there's nobody watching. And she also knows that she's got less television persona than virtually anyone on television except Joy Reid, according to Trump. So blasting MSNBC, he calls it's all Operation Corrupt, adding that it is nothing more than an illegal arm of the Democratic Party. They should be forced to pay vast sums of money for the damage they've done to our country. Fake news is an unpardonable offense, or an unpardonable sin, he says. That's what Trump said, honey. So I guess he's glad to see poor little old Joy leaving. Well, condolences to Joy for losing her show. Like I said, I didn't agree with some of the things that she said, but nonetheless, she's out of work for the time being. Maybe she'll get her a show on X, okay, or YouTube, like Don Lemon. Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast, but beloveds, before I roll out, let me tell you all something very important. You have to be careful of what you're listening to and hearing on YouTube and other social media platforms, because there are some people just making up whole lies. Okay, so the other day, there was a story that came out about Beyonce and Jay-Z allegedly suing A$AP Rocky and Rihanna. Okay, now that story was supposedly made up, okay? And I'm not going to call the name of the content creator who people are saying made that story up, who told that lie, and is now acting like they're bringing the truth. Oh, they're saying, oh, people are saying that there was a lawsuit, people are spreading misinformation, but clearly people are saying they're the one who's spreading the misinformation. Now, I'm not going to call their name, but we call them Wig 2 over here in this chat. That's what we call them. We call them Wig number 2. So they're saying, I saw a video on yesterday where people are saying that Wig number 2 made up this whole story, filed a fraudulent lawsuit, okay, with justia.com, where anybody can file anything basically. And according to her own words, she said that Porky Pig filed a lawsuit against Looney Tunes. Okay, so it looks like she would know that she would be able to file something frivolous like that. Okay, you can do it electronically, right? And so basically now she's coming out talking about, oh yeah, I got to figure out why this is, this is a false lawsuit that was filed. It's disinformation, and the only one that it benefits is Diddy, and they're trying to use this to help Diddy and this, that, and the third. I'm telling y'all, this is all crazy, because that's not the first time that she's been accused of doing such. And I've told you all before that she's a liar who lies. Okay, so now she's out here creating fictitious stories, and then so she can come back and use the lie as content and act as though she's bringing the truth, when in fact she's the one that people are saying told the lie in the first place. That's what they're saying in the YouTube streets. That's what they're saying, okay? So like I said, I saw a video of someone talking about it yesterday. Now, with that all being said, so please make sure you're doing your due diligence and don't just believe anything and everything that you hear out here in these streets. because some of these big YouTubers, they know that they can control the algorithm, and so they'll quickly put out lies just to get clicks and views and YouTube monetization. And then here's the thing, you have to think about someone who's known for being a liar on YouTube is now trying to act like they're the voice of truth. Please make that make sense. Okay, please make that make sense. Now she's trying to act like she's the voice of truth. All right, this is the same person who a couple of weeks ago, and I guess they think that people forgot, said that there was going to be a bigger case coming against Jay-Z within 48 hours that was going to be way bigger than his problems with Tony Busby. Well, I'm still waiting for that case because they said 48 hours and nothing ever showed up. Okay, so clearly that was a lie. Okay, so please pay attention. This is also the same person who back last year said that it was confirmed that Jay-Z was under investigation. Okay, and that too was a lie. All right, so please pay attention, because like I said, this person just makes up stories out of the clear blue sky at the end of the day. And they're saying that, in fact, and I don't know, I can't substantiate it, I'm just telling you what the streets are saying. Everybody's saying that she's the one who made up that story and is now coming back trying to act like she's telling the truth and saying that somebody's spreading misinformation. Well, if she's the one actually spreading the misinformation, that is just some very weird work. Okay, that's diabolical in my opinion. Queen Sam said, that's why we love the Queen. Truth and facts only. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Okay, so with that all being said, everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. And let me tell you something about people who make these false allegations, who put out these fake stories. You see, if you're not a person who does your due diligence as I do, you would likely be reporting on a story that a liar like wig number 2 just happened to make up. Do you all see that? Do you all understand what I'm saying here? Okay, because there's some people that are likely going to report on that story thinking that it's true, thinking that that Beyonce and Jay-Z absolutely did sue Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. Okay, this is all crazy. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Hold on. Now, so let's get into it. Hold on. Let me pull up my receipt. Okay, here we go. Now I want you all to listen to this. Okay, are Jay-Z and Rihanna, or Jay-Z and Beyonce suing Rihanna and A$AP Rocky? Roc Nation issues a catchy response, because Roc Nation came out and spoke on it. Okay, rumors about Jay-Z and Beyonce suing Rihanna and A$AP Rocky have been circulating online. On Sunday, February 23rd of 2025, an X account at I'm Not Pop Base shared a screenshot of 2 alleged pending lawsuits filed in the Virgin Islands District Court. Now, the screenshot indicated that Hov and Beyonce filed separate lawsuits against the Rocky and the Fenty Beauty founder, with hearings set for March 8th. However, there is no credible evidence to support those rumors. Additionally, Roc Nation, founded by Jay-Z in 2008, denied the same in a cheeky response posted to X, stating, and this is what he said: "Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb." It also came, Don't Be Dumb is also the name of A$AP Rocky's upcoming studio album. Okay, according to a report from the Tribune, the speculations arose from discussions on social media and Reddit without legal documentation to support the claims. So the rumors come just days after A$AP Rocky was acquitted in his gun assault case involving his former friend A$AP Rocky on Tuesday, February the 18th of 2025. All right, so that I've been said, no, Beyonce and Jay-Z are not suing A$AP Rocky and Rihanna. That is just somebody out here telling lies, okay, just to be clout chasing, as per usual. Leon Gardner said liars can't help themselves. Exactly, that's what they can't do, okay, especially pathological liars. Okay, so that all been said, you all be careful out here in these streets, honey, because I'm telling you, people are out here just spreading all kinds of lies and BS. And you know, people telling lies like this, these are the very types of things that I'm telling you could get Diddy a mistrial. And the funny thing is, the person who's alleged to have made up this whole lie is the same one saying just that, copying my talking points again. Because haven't I been telling you all that? Okay, as I've been exposing these liars like Courtney Burgess, Drea English, Lamisha Fuller, and all the like. Okay, so Allie Carter. Okay, so please pay attention. With that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Oh, and let me say one more thing too. Something else that I thought was interesting. Okay, so Jay-Z replied simply, "Don't be dumb," which is the name of A$AP Rocky's upcoming album. But another thing that's interesting is A$AP Rocky has a commercial coming out with Gucci and with a new fragrance. And basically it's called Gucci Guilty or Guilty Gucci. I think it's Gucci Guilty, but isn't that crazy? And so just imagine if that had come out before his trial. All right, I'm just saying. With that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. And don't forget to keep your notifications on, because I will be back later on today. Okay, sometimes later this evening. All right, so keep the notifications on, and I will talk to you all again soon. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Hey, yo, Nick, hit him with that flavor. Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen, why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood. Kings all in my circle, you touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got